We made it to Jamestown, everybody. We are here. It's been a long trip, and we're so excited to share everything with you. And hopefully you all enjoy it as much as we hope to. So Kurtis is going to jump in and start us off with our first little episode.
Yeah, so we were able to make this trek to Jamestown and figured we needed to talk about one of the significant cultural topics today, which is colonialism. And when we think about colonialism, we're talking about the people from other cultures coming over to North America and supplanting other cultures and bringing their various ideas with them. And so when we talk about Jamestown specifically, we're talking about two different cultural ideologies. So that's primarily humanism and Christianity. So those are the two cultural mindsets that people came to Jamestown with. And we're going to be exploring some of the implications of those two different ideas, and specifically humanism. The people that came with that mindset had the idea that they were looking for something better than they had, something that was already pristine and perfect and presentable, ready for them to engage with. But and the people that would have had that mindset did not come with the right intentions. So we see that with Pizarro in Peru and some of the other conquistadors, and also some of the settlers that came with to Jamestown. But when we also look at the Christian and the Christian mindset that people came with to bring the knowledge of the Lord to the ends of the earth, that was their idea, that was their mindset, to be missionaries, to bring the gospel, to bring civilization as they understood it, coming from the biblical principles of the Bible. And those are the ideas that were at the heart and mind of the settlers of Jamestown primarily.
Right, so we're going to talk about colonialism, a focus on colonialism while we're here. You've been told a lot of things if you've been educated by the state about colonialism. Colonialism actually is a new word and sort of separate from colony or colonizing, which just comes from the Latin to settle. And colonialism started as a negative concept in about 1955, I think, is the first time we saw it as a negative concept, and it really began that way because of the communists, and the communists hating colonialism for the simple reason that it promotes things like capitalism and Christianity. So these are sort of heavy, complex topics, and we're just going to dig in, just talk about them a little bit while we're here. We'll see what happens with the other reenactors, because the story we researched and found is a lot different than what is typically presented at places like this that are focusing on a very humanist statist perspective. So just for starters, the whole myth that Cortez came and took over Peru is pretty broad reaching, and it's simply not the case. In the Americas at the time of early exploration, there was paganism, human sacrifice, and so the people really saw Cortez as a deliverer who was saving them from their pagan eating each other alive. And that's what really happened here in the Americas too, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more. There's
yeah, we'll cover people like John Smith, and we'll cover the people of like Columbus and some of the other explorers and their mindsets.
Right. Yeah. So right here we're actually by the ships. This is the Susan Constance, the Godspeed.
And Godspeed and the Discovery.
Yeah, the Discovery. All right. So one other thing we want to talk about, I guess I just wanted to point out briefly that it's good to recognize what we're swimming in. So, like Aubrey said, a lot of the concepts that we're going to be discussing are controversial because of how we've been educated, and pop culture and social media have a lot to do with that as well. So there are buzzwords that you've heard. There are concepts, the 1619 Project, for example, that have really planted in the modern mind a certain view of how to think about these people. So what we're trying to do here is really change, or at least encourage people to rethink the way that we have encountered these concepts up to this point. And the whole idea of why this narrative is being told in a new way has to do with a humanist culture that needs to rewrite its history in order to produce for itself a narrative that allows it to move a culture in a certain direction. So it's good to understand that and we'll talk about this more as time goes on, but it's good to understand what we're coming from, the concepts that you've been presented with growing up and living in America in this time period, and to just put your thinking caps on as we start to talk. So we can't wait to share with you all.
So just in conclusion here, as we consider colonialism, we're going to see good and bad examples of it. There are times when righteousness thrived and where humanism thrived, and so you have wickedness and errors being purported. There's three real fundamental ways in which we analyze this. Colonization needs to have good motives, good actions, and good results. If it fails in just one of those areas, it's bad colonization. So it's really easy to do really poor colonization. It's really difficult to do good colonization. But I think with Jamestown, we're going to see that there were times where it really was good colonization, and where largely across the Americas and Protestantism, the effects that it had, the actions it took, were regarded as good. So just something to bear in mind as you come into something. Just because a label is foisted upon something doesn't mean that it is bad, but that it could be good or could be bad. So we need to examine things in light of their ideas, the actions, and the consequences of it.
Critical thinking. Here we go, guys. We can't wait to share more with you.
Stay tuned.